I have one announcement for the public before we begin this evening. Tonight, we're trying 2 new features. We have a camera now in our boardroom so that you can see the dais. And we will also be using a timer in the boardroom and a timer on the Zoom screen. So those are 2 features we're testing tonight to support the meeting. President Bullock's live stream is now activated. You may start the meeting.
Good evening and welcome to the March 17th, 2021 regular board meeting of the Capistrano Unified School District. The meeting is now in session and the time is 7:09 p.m. Due to the nature of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with Governor Newsom's executive order N29-20 issued on March 17th, 2020, the board members have the option to attend the meeting and take action on any item telephonically. We do have all board members with us in person this evening. The boardroom is now open to the public. For the safety and well-being of others in attendance, all are required to wear a mask and social distancing practices are being followed. The public is also allowed to participate in this board meeting telephonically. Prior to this meeting, the district posted a link for you to call in if you wish to address the board on any agenda item this evening. Please note that staff has pulled agenda item number 20, school board minutes, and will bring back this item for board approval at the April 21st, 2021 regular board meeting. Mrs. Hayes, please call the roll.
Student Advisor Boschker.
Here.
Trustee Bronstein.
Here.
Trustee Bullockis.
Here.
Trustee Castellanos.
Here.
Trustee Davis.
Here.
Trustee Hanachek.
Here.
Trustee Jones.
Here.
Trustee McNicholas.
Here. I'd like to now ask the Vice President of the Board, Krista Castellanos, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Before we adopt tonight's agenda, I have another quick note. Staff has pulled agenda item number 25. This item will not be discussed this evening. Please go ahead with your motions.
Could you share with me again who made the motion and who seconded?
We all did.
Okay, Lisa Davis made the motion, and Trustee, who seconded? Trustee McNicholas. Thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Motion carries 7-0-0. Could we please have a report on the closed session action?
On agenda item 3A, public health emergency, trustees gave direction to staff. On agenda item 3B, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, trustees voted 7-0 to approve staff recommendation on the following ADR cases: 2019-1120M, 2019-1206M, 2020-0710, 2020-1118, 2021-0122, 2021-0128, 2021-0203, 2021-0210. On agenda item B9, trustees gave direction to staff. On agenda item B10, no reportable action. On agenda item B11, trustees provided direction to staff to remove the 5th grade family life video and accompanying instruction from the 2020-2021 school year instructional plan. Staff was directed to revisit instruction in these topics in the fall. On agenda item 3C, conference with legal counsel existing litigation, trustees voted 7-0 to approve staff recommendation on the following OAH case, 2019020057. On agenda item 3D, conference with real property negotiators. On agenda item D1, property Pacifica San Juan, trustees gave direction to staff. On agenda item D2, South Transportation and Groundskeeping Facility, trustees gave direction to staff. On agenda item 3E, conference with labor negotiators, trustees gave direction to staff. On agenda item 3F, public employee performance evaluation, trustees gave direction to staff. This concludes my report.
I'd like to recognize Superintendent Kirsten Vital-Brulti to present her comments this evening.
Great, good evening. Nice to see so many people here in the boardroom. I think this has been our largest crowd since we've been open. So good evening. And whether you're in person or you're watching on YouTube, welcome, welcome. I want to begin this evening actually by sharing a little bit about our cultural proficiency lessons. Although they're not on the agenda tonight, they remain a topic of discussion with many of our families. 2 years ago, we began our cultural proficiency work with district leadership, with a desire to look deeply at our English language learners and understand how and why they're not achieving at the same level of success in our classrooms. We also wanted to identify inequitable practices and policies and enact changes inside our school district to make real progress for our students. At the same time, we began to discuss social emotional support for our young people that would help them grow into the students we envision in our mission, preparing students to meet the challenges of a rapidly changing world. We passed our cultural proficiency plan that includes the development of culturally proficient lessons. We read a book as a district leadership team, Cultural Proficiency, a manual for school leaders. And in that book, cultural proficiency is described as a paradigm shift from viewing cultural differences as problematic to learning how to interact effectively with other cultures. For schools and school districts, it serves as a tipping point from viewing cultural differences as a deficit-based to learning how to value cultural differences as assets on which education experiences are built. When done correctly, these lessons will help each student grow in understanding themselves and others. They will appreciate differences and advocate for them. They'll be accepting of themselves and others for who we are and our individual differences, and they will view these differences as being valuable. They will know how to work with, collaborate, and understand people in a diverse world. We need to prepare students for this, for jobs, college, military, careers with a diversity of people, multicultural, multilingual. These lessons are a series of short lessons, one per grade level, that are approximately 1 hour in length. We want to do this correctly. It's our value to get this right for our young people, and these will be coming back to the board. On another note, tonight on our agenda is a discussion of the process for reopening schools this fall. Last week, we distributed a survey to families to receive your input on social distancing guidelines. As explained, the California Department of Public Health currently allows 4 to 6 feet of social distancing and requires 6 feet for contact tracing when there is a positive case. With over 14,000 responses, we know that 75% of families want to reduce physical distancing in classrooms to 4 feet and make all-day instruction available again. We also know that, yes, this survey was shared on social media, and we understand that people outside of CUSD may have responded to the survey. For this reason, our next step will be reaching out to individual families to select their requested options for the fall. I deeply appreciate the collaboration process we are engaged in with our employees and their representatives to plan for reopening 2.0. Tonight, I also want to share some great statistics from our food and nutrition services, who have done an extraordinary job providing nutritious meals to our students through the pandemic. Since March 16th, 2020, a year ago, we have served 2,232,262 meals, thanks to the incredible employees in the food services department and their leadership. Our meal participation for the month of February hit pre-COVID numbers. Before the pandemic hit, we had an average daily participation of 24%. Last August, our participation rate was 1.29%. And this month, we hit 24.19% participation. Finally, we're holding a kindergarten informational webinar on Wednesday, March 24th from 10 to 11. You can sign up on the homepage of our website under featured news and join us for an interactive live stream panel discussion in a Q&A format. Topics include an overview of kindergarten programs and school health and safety measures, full day kindergarten, a typical day, and how to prepare your child for full day academics, social activities and play, developmental milestones and how to age and maturity factor into readiness, and tips for you and your child to assist with literacy, numeracy, and self-help skills, and how to enroll your child in CUSD. So we're looking forward to seeing all of our kindergarten families. And this concludes my report.
Do we have any trustees that would like to make comments? Okay.
I have a quick comment.
Oh, Trustee Hanachek.
A quick comment and a request from the board. Quick comment, this week I got to actually Zoom into a San Clemente High School senior econ class and listen to their public goods projects. I've been doing this for years. I get really excited about it. I love to give my input. I think it's so much fun. And although of course it was different this year, I wasn't there in person. Their response to me was pretty much the same, like mute. So that was good. So good consistency there. So on another note, I'm kind of loath to do this, but I would like to request to bring back to the board at a future board meeting, discussion around our facilities use fees increases. I feel like we need to move on, and I think we need a little bit deeper discussion on that. So I'd like, wherever we can fit that in the future, I'd like to bring that back. I think it would be helpful for our community partners. Thank you.
Okay, and student advisor, Anshel Bhaskar.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to give some feedback from the high school students. As we all know, I guess the district or principals at our school sent out an email about graduation, and I actually got really exciting texts from a bunch of my peers saying that they were stoked that we're finally able to hear that we have an in-person graduation. They had all texted me yesterday night saying, like, could you say that at the meeting? And so I'm sure they're really excited. They are really excited to hear that it is in person. And they said that the campuses have become more lively with opening of sports, and kids feel hopeful for the first time in a long time. So I really appreciate that. I just wanted to comment that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's good to hear. I do have one comment. I need to give a shout out. It is at the back for anybody who would like to grab one of these. Capo Valley High School. And it kind of relates to cultural proficiency. I just really appreciate when our teachers go above and beyond. And there was a story in our Insider, and Capistrano Unified School District, Capo Valley High School teacher, Bruce Carlisle, was really disappointed that his Model United Nations class, the seniors had spent 3 years working hard, and because of COVID, they were going to be denied the opportunity to compete because they can't compete in person. Now, I don't know exactly how he did this, but he set up an MUN, Model United Nations competition with Greece. And our students were able to compete with Greece. And with the time difference and all, they had to go through the night, but they had such a wonderful experience. And so I'd really point out to anybody who's not here tonight, you can go online to Capistrano Unified School District website, go to Insider. And for those of you here tonight, there's 2 pages of comments about the students and their experience in this being able to compete with Greece. And I just thought it was really heartwarming. And later this month, teacher Bruce Carlisle has set it up, and they're going to be competing with Japan. So in terms of cultural proficiency, our students gave big thumbs up for those students in Greece, for their patience and for the communication back and forth. It was really a very enlightening experience for them all, and I'm thrilled to hear about things like this, and I want to share that with you. Okay. Let's move to oral communications. Now, we do have approximately 23 who would like to speak, and as our experience has been in the past, sometimes we find that they are not online and it might be less. Our normal speaking time is 3 minutes, and that would be just over 1 hour. Are we in agreement on the board to listen to all speakers? I'm getting majority of nods. All right, let's start with Jamie Hansen. Jamie, is she there? No?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead, Jamie.
Great. Thank you. First, I just wanted to say thank you to the Board of Trustees for keeping our children safe. My name is Jamie Hansen, and my daughter is a kindergartner at R.H. Dana Elementary School. I wanted to speak today in regards to the cultural proficiency curriculum. I was a high school teacher for a decade. I taught in Minneapolis, Chicago, and Guatemala City. And when I reviewed the cultural proficiency curriculum, I was both excited that this is where the district is moving and also alarmed that it wasn't already being taught to our kids. I wanted to urge the Board of Trustees to pass this curriculum when they take the vote in the next board meeting. Now, I had the really unique opportunity to teach topics that were relevant to what is in this curriculum from 3 different perspectives as I taught US history, psychology, and sociology, which allowed me to teach from a historical perspective with a systemic analysis and to invite students to understand how both our conditioning and genetics impact our personal behaviors. We are all individuals and we are all part of social groups. These social groups we are part of are valued differently by society, and this then grants us more or less access to the resources in society. The data is clear and easy to find, so I won't spend my time giving you statistics tonight. It's undeniable that our nation has seen a rise in white nationalist violence and domestic terrorism over the past decade. This is directly related to the entitlement that comes from learned supremacy, meaning there's a deep-seated belief that one identity is somehow better or superior than the other. Just one example is what happened last night in Georgia. We have seen a rise in incidents targeting our Asian American population. 3,800 have been reported over the last year, with 503 of them happening in just 2021 alone. We've seen incidents in our own community committed by high school students that attend our schools. I know that every single one of us is heartbroken by this, and I want it never to happen again, but it seems we might disagree on why it's happening in the first place. I will just close with the words of James Baldwin: not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. I believe we must reckon with our past. We must face the present moment with truth, vulnerability, and a deep desire to create a world where everyone belongs. And I believe that this curriculum is a great step in this direction. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jamie. And Susan Saucedo? And Susan, correct me, I may not have pronounced your last name properly. You're there?
Hello?
Yes, Susan, we can hear you.
Oh, yes. Hi, good evening. I speak in support of the cultural proficiency curriculum. I'm the mother of 3 children attending Oso Grande Elementary. I appreciate that the CUSD mission is, quote, to prepare our students to meet the challenges of a rapidly changing world, end quote. This implies that you, our leaders, are staying vigilant for changes in our world that need to be translated into educational opportunities for our children. While colleges, universities, healthcare systems, and corporations have become more aware of the importance of cultural proficiency, we as a school district cannot be left behind. Our children need to be taught how to interact effectively in our diverse world. While some may argue that their world is Orange County, that point of view is limited. With the emergence of social media, interactions happen on a global scale every minute. Brief, hateful, intolerant, racist remarks can have detrimental consequences on a personal level and in the community. Take the following newspaper headlines as examples. A white high school senior varsity cheer captain had to withdraw from her dream university after a 3-second video with a racial slur resurfaced on social media. Harvard rescinds admission offer to student who made jokes about the Holocaust and insulting remarks about members of various racial and ethnic groups. And most recently, a professional basketball player with the Miami Heat was fined and suspended after use of an anti-Semitic slur. Feigning ignorance will increasingly not be tolerated, and consequences to our children may be dire and long-lasting. In this cultural proficiency curriculum, which was drafted by professional educators, we are talking about lessons that amount to 30 minutes per year. Although this is not enough, it is a starting point. Do not oppose progress in favor of the status quo. Do not fail our children in this opportunity for cultural education. It is no longer an option. It is necessary for our children's success and embodies the CUSD mission. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Noah Rodriguez.
Hi, good evening. My name is Noah and I have 3 children who attend Oso Grande Elementary. I am speaking in support of the cultural proficiency curriculum, and I want to be clear tonight on what the curriculum is and what it is not. First, the cultural proficiency curriculum was developed by experienced teachers and educators. It was developed by content experts, professionals who know what they're talking about and who know how to do their job. Second, the curriculum was developed to create an inclusive environment that values diversity and increases the learnings for all CUSD students. Since when is this a bad thing? And since when is this an issue of concern? It only becomes an issue of concern because some have bought into the sensationalistic misrepresentation of the curriculum, suggesting that it teaches victimization. So tonight, let me be clear. This is not about teaching victimization. Rather, this is about upholding the fundamental truth that knowledge is power. It is teaching the twin truths that we are born with great potential and into different circumstances. We know that in life, some were born into extremely favorable circumstances while others were not. And circumstances matter. External influences matter. And willfully withholding this truth from our children will only hurt them and ultimately cause them to fall victim to the truths that are waiting for them in the real world. We must stop crippling our children by boiling down success to simply working hard and making good choices. Come on now. We all know that being successful is made up of more than that. Our children need to be aware of their advantages so that they can optimize them, and they need to know what their disadvantages are so that they can recognize them, confront them, and eliminate them. To not acknowledge differences is to not see children in their entirety. It is to dismiss the complexities of their circumstances. It is a disservice to them, and it is wrong. Look, I'm a cancer surgeon and a women's healthcare specialist. It is imperative for me to tell my patients that as women, they have unique health risks compared to men. They are 3 times more likely to develop autoimmune diseases, 4 times more likely to suffer from headaches, migraines, and more likely to have Alzheimer's disease compared to men. These are facts and realities that women face. I'm not sharing these facts from a place of victimization. Rather, I firmly believe that this knowledge will empower women and my patients to understand their unique health circumstances and take steps to mitigate them. In the same way, we should be guided by the premise that knowledge will empower our children. Our children deserve and need to know the full picture. They need to be aware of the external forces that may try to disrupt their success. Because once they are aware of these external forces, then and only then will they be able to recognize them and meet them head on. Don't fall for the lie that knowledge of one's circumstances will victimize. No, knowledge does not victimize. Knowledge empowers. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is necessary. Please don't keep this from our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda Ernest.
Yes. Hi there. Yes, thank you so much. So as a mom of 5, I would first like to share candidly, after the new sex ed curriculum was introduced a couple years ago, we did pull our 6th grader from the district. We had 1 child in private school and the other 4 remained proud CUSD students. However, with the COVID challenges of the last year, we did pull out 3 more of our children from CUSD this year, while now only 1 of our 5 children remain in CUSD, a junior in high school. I graduated from CUSD, so did my husband. We are still proud Capo Valley Cougars, and our children had this amazing experience of learning Spanish in the Spanish immersion program. I remember the day like it was yesterday. I sobbed as I took the paperwork into the office to officially withdraw our three younger children from this beautiful program into a district that has served our family so beautifully, literally throughout the decades. Through my tears, I asked the office staffer for a hug. I was devastated to leave, as one of my very favorite things about the Spanish immersion program was the appreciation for other cultures the program fostered, a community of inclusion and appreciation for others who were different than my children were some of the most paramount successes of that program. I'm truly heartbroken to have been forced to leave the district because of COVID. Although with new curriculum around the cultural proficiency as is currently written, we may have ended up pulling our children out anyway. Let me be clear, I love all cultures. It is so important to us as a family that our children understand and appreciate all people of all backgrounds. It's one of the most important reasons why I drove past 4 other English-speaking elementary schools to take my children for over a decade to Las Palmas Elementary. This is so important to me. But that leads me to bring up a couple things I'm deeply concerned about. First, I realize the cultural proficiency curriculum is not on tonight's agenda, although staff, as we know, is studying and revising it to present once again. And there's 2 things that I'm very concerned about. First is the origin of these lessons. A few people have said that these are created by, well-qualified educators. I read these lessons, all of them, and I researched the origin from which they came. I'm very, very alarmed at where these come from. And second, what could the consequences be in our community if we take this particular approach to increasing cultural proficiency as opposed to embracing programs like Spanish immersion, multicultural fairs, working together as groups, and so many other beautiful opportunities we can provide for students. So origin of the lessons. Yes.
Your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Rob Bernabid? Rob?
I do not have Rob with us this evening.
Okay. Let's see, I have Jamie Hansen listed twice. I don't think this is going to be a different Jamie. How about Shireen Smith?
Shireen, go ahead.
Shireen, are you there? Okay, why don't we go ahead to Diana Rojas Megahini, and maybe we can come back if Shireen is there. And it looks like Diana's in our audience tonight.
And Diana, I ask that you just step back from the podium and speak loud and clearly and not touch the podium, and then we'll keep it safer for all of them.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So today I'd like to talk to you about the lesson on privilege in the cultural proficiency curriculum. I'll start by sharing a little bit about my background. I was born and raised in Mexico, and I came to the US to attend college at the age of 18. I grew up in a very humble household. My parents worked extremely hard and made a lot of sacrifices that eventually paid off and allowed them to send me to the US to attend college. I attended a religious university where I was unmistakably a minority. I was part of the 2% as an international student, initially part of the less than 1% as a student who didn't share the same religion as over 99% of the student body, and part of the 17% as a female in a predominantly male degree. So according to this lesson on privilege, I must have been extremely disadvantaged, not only because of my modest upbringing, which stands in stark contrast with that of most people here in the US, but also because while in college, I was not part of the prevailing race, nationality, gender, or religion. The lesson does a fine job at attempting to stigmatize people like me for these circumstances. The lesson fuels resentment, comparison, and self-pity. And I think you would all agree that this is the perfect recipe for a life of misery. I'm very glad that this lesson was never presented to me growing up, and that no one attempted to instill in me the notion that any immutable characteristic of mine would limit my ability to accomplish anything I'd set my mind to. I didn't go through college resenting everybody else's advantages over mine. I was there focused on my own determination to reach my goals. I went on to graduate magna cum laude and high distinction from the most competitive bachelor and master's degree programs within the university and the #1 accounting school in the nation. Most importantly, I lived in gratitude for the blessings I enjoyed and not stigmatized for lacking certain privileges. I find it horrifying that teachers who should be uplifting and empowering our kids would instead be promoting resentment and victimhood. I am a mother of 3 kids, and I will never engage in the racist notion that they will be sitting in the back row of that classroom with lower chances of aiming at the basket because of their Hispanic heritage or the abundance of melanin on their skin. It'd be unacceptable for any teacher to try to teach them otherwise. The way you help us as minorities is not by asking us to internalize our grievances or to fabricate them. You help us by promoting feelings of empowerment and gratitude, and by highlighting the behavior and character traits that will allow us to succeed. I urge you to scratch the toxic lesson on privilege and start working on uniting rather than dividing, inspiring instead of stigmatizing, and elevating. Thank you.
Time is up, but thank you. Vanessa Santos. Vanessa Santos.
Vanessa, go ahead. Your line is live.
Hello. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you for everything you've done to keep our schools open through this pandemic. I realize that the curriculum that we're discussing is very emotional and a hard thing for us to be tackling as a school district. And I want to commend us for trying to take this work on. And I would like to just keep my comments brief and encourage all of the school board members that if you do have concerns about the curriculum, that you reach out to the proficiency task force that you have at your disposal and the work that they've done so that they can defend their lessons. I think some of the attacks are unjustified in some of the ways that I've seen them presented to you. And I would like you to just try to go to the source, go directly to the task force if you have any questions or concerns. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Johanna Trainer.
I do not have Joanna on the line.
We don't have Johanna. Okay. Pilar March.
Pilar, go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead, Pilar.
Okay, as a Capo parent and mother of 2 African-American youngsters, one of them at San Clemente High School, I want to ensure that our students are well prepared, and I'm talking to express my support for the cultural proficiency lessons that they are currently being reviewed by you. It is imperative that our students learn how to accept, appreciate, and coexist with all sorts of races. I wanted also to share with you what we encounter now, today in our community, where bullying and aggressions are being made to our Asian friends, where today, well, more exactly, last school year at San Clemente High School football game, African-American cheerleaders from another school in San Diego were aggressed verbally, where during a San Clemente High School class, yes, 2 years ago, a Muslim student was asked by a teacher, if he had a bomb in his backpack. Yes, this did happen in our district, where during a San Clemente High School class, the teacher, this was last school year, did repeatedly mention African American as Negros. Yes, we need a curriculum to teach our children that knowledge is power. We are all different, but we need to teach our children how to accept each other besides our different economic status, color of our skin, or religions. Thank you so much for listening and totally in support of the cultural proficiency lessons. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Davidson?
Hi, thank you. I am making a statement today to support the curriculum, cultural proficiency curriculum. I believe that cultural representation matters. Telling stories from diverse cultural perspectives is important to understand the complexity of the human experience. As a parent of multi-ethnic, multicultural, and multilingual children, the improvements made to implement the cultural proficiency curriculum is very important. It will be empowering to students. A more diverse curriculum won't be divisive, it will be inclusive. This curriculum diminishes bias, encourages empathy, respect, and creates inclusion in the classrooms. Students have taken steps on their own to create representation on school campuses by having cultural clubs. That is not something that should leave them on the periphery to do on their own. A multicultural history curriculum that accurately represents American history is an investment in the present and the future. Negating it holds us in the past that too many have struggled to change and will have to continue to do so, then focusing on their own ambitions and dreams and goals. I urge the board to approve this curriculum. On a personal note, when I relocated to this area, I grew up in Orange County and lived for many years and came back. I was calling schools because I wanted my children to be in a school that represented their cultural heritage and respected their bilingual education, whether the language was taught in the school or not. And I called several schools and asked about the multicultural education that they offered. And I called a school in San Clemente. It was a elementary school, and I was told that that school represented themselves as the white bread school of the district. And I was horrified that that would be told to a parent. But I think it does reflect the attitudes that are representation in this community, and it needs to change. Thank you.
Thank you. Leanne Williams?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, trustees, for allowing me to speak. And thank you also for all that you do to ensure our Capo kids have a wonderful education and meaningful experiences. I am a mom of a 5th grader in Capo, but tonight I speak to you as an educator. I come from the South. I taught in schools in Raleigh, North Carolina, and in Hampton Roads, Virginia. I taught elementary school, and then I also taught middle school social studies for a combined of 15 years. I know many people have the idea that the South is backwards, but in ways of cultural proficiency, some of the Southern school systems are leading the way. So when my daughter started school here in Orange County, I was surprised at the lack of curriculum in this area and by some of the outdated ways of thinking. When I was teaching in Virginia in the 1990s, a million years ago, the schools were already working hard to make sure all students were celebrated and understood. It was not uncommon for classroom discussions to be centered on racism and different cultures. Our school counselors were teaching us to handle these conversations with grace and confidence. Our students were taught lessons of resilience and of celebration of all cultures and races. And then in 2009, also a million years ago, Virginia Department of Education as a whole passed a cultural proficiency plan and a cultural proficiency curriculum. And recently I saw that the Virginia Beach City Schools took it a bit further and developed a culturally responsive curriculum because, quote, cultural diversity brings a collective strength that can benefit all humanity, end quote. And when I was moving here in 2013, Wake County School Board, the largest school district in North Carolina, passed a cultural proficiency curriculum. And it was updated again in 2015. I say all of this to say, Our students will be graduating from our schools, heading to college. They will be met with students who are well-versed in empathy, who are able to navigate diverse settings, and are able to move through our changing society with grace and confidence. Not addressing differences doesn't mean they don't exist, but rather ignoring the differences teaches our children to be ashamed of themselves if they don't fit the norm. Ignoring the lessons in this well-researched curriculum will ensure that our kids will be the ones who are not proficient. Our kids will be put into positions and workforces and places of business without the tools to navigate the world. And the students who have learned to live in a society of love and acceptance, those who were taught to embrace cultures and to respect customs, those who learned to smash stereotypes, those are the ones who will rise to the top. And as I know all of us do, I want our kids to be the leaders. I'm asking for your support as the staff works to update this curriculum. And please support this small step as we prepare our students for the 21st century. And as the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, we must learn to live together as brothers and sisters or perish together as fools. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather Chapman.
Heather is not with us online.
Okay. Anne Segovia.
Anne, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm here today to express my strong support for the cultural proficiency lessons that are up for a vote next month. It is important that our children are taught lessons that will expose them to diverse social, economical, and cultural environments that enable them to be thoughtful and empathetic critical thinkers. Cultural proficiency lessons address this current gap and is mandated by the approved board resolution on the fight against intolerance, racism, and discrimination. Teaching our children diverse perspectives, allowing them to understand it's okay to see differences and to be respectful of these differences is not a zero-sum game. It does not mean that children born into fortunate lives should be punished for it, and it does not take away from their opportunities that they'll be given because of it. It just gives our children the tools to acknowledge and respect diversity. As an Asian American, I grew up in an all-white neighborhood, much like my current city. The discrimination I faced was never overt or obvious. There were microaggressions I received from people who were ignorant to cultural diversity. It made me want to assimilate to white people because I never saw anything that represented me in America. And as a kid, all I wanted was to feel accepted. It wasn't until I lived in Santa Ana, went to university in Irvine, that I was exposed to other cultures, and it did wonders for me in respect to how I felt about belonging in America. This is not the story I want for my children. Children should not have to assimilate to belong. This country belongs to all of us, and it's due time that that's represented and promoted in our education system. It's important that my children grow up not only being taught lessons of diversity and inclusion at home, but that our education system reinforces these valuable lessons to help foster acceptance and cooperation for them and their peers. In the current environment especially, we must stress the importance of making cultural proficiency a priority. Other school districts and even my peers' companies, as well as my own company, have implemented diversity and inclusion trainings and tools. Cultural proficiency does not just serve groups that are marginalized. We live in a world that is truly globalized, and so these lessons help prepare our children for the global marketplace. How many stories have we heard of college students getting suspended for culturally insensitive theme parties, or people who were fired for verbally assaulting a racial minority and it's caught on camera? We need to give our students the tools to acknowledge what is appropriate and what is offensive so they can avoid the real consequences that come from being ignorant. I'm thankful for the board for taking the first steps towards cultural proficiency by passing the resolution on fighting against intolerance, racism, and discrimination, and I look forward to the passage of the cultural proficiency lessons next month. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Darcy
Darcy, go ahead.
I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yes, Darcy, go ahead.
Hi. I'm a member of the Capo Unified District Parent Association, and I wanted to speak about my support of opening the schools full-time in person 5 days a week. I have 4 children in your district who have suffered different degrees of depression, uninvolvement, and motivation by the different days on and off of school. High school and junior high kids need to be at school every single day. We should not discriminate from them because they're not in elementary school. I'm grateful for your elementary program, but my high school and junior high kids struggle with the lack of education every day. Other states are allowing their kids to be in school. My son will be competing with these same kids when he applies, when he's only been able to go to school 2 days a week. This is not effective learning. This is not effective education. We cannot continue with online school next year. If parents would like to choose that option, I'm sure you're going to offer that. There always has been an online option. But for those of us who need in-person education, we need a 5-day-a-week choice. As parents, there is an academic preparation crisis. We are failing our kids and making them unprepared for college. We need to prioritize their mental health, their physical health, their academic success. Children are staying home and cheating, staying in their pajamas, thinking this is how the real world works. My son will be going to college with kids who have had rigorous educations in states that are open. We need to figure out a way to put the desks closer. That the survey that you talked about, the 75%, I do think that represents what parents feel. Parents want their kids back in school every day. If other states are doing it, I believe we can too. I know in San Diego, a restraining order was ruled in favor of blocking the governor's control on some of the new guidelines. So I'd like to do that for our district too and make our children a priority rather than these ever-changing guidelines, moving carrots that don't support or help our children's mental and physical health, and not to mention their academic success. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon Williams?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's hard to tell. So I am commenting today. This is my first comment at any school board meeting, and I was so inspired to participate this evening because the topic of the hour is the cultural proficiency curriculum. As you guys know, even though it's not on the agenda tonight, there's been a lot of talk about it. There's a lot of stuff circulating on social media as well. So I wanted to call in support of it for multiple reasons. My son is a 3rd grader at Truman Benedict, but I grew up here in San Clemente. I went to Short Cliffs. I went to San Clemente High School. And I went out into the world and was unfortunately incredibly ignorant and incredibly insensitive and incredibly uninformed. And my own implicit bias led the way. And I made a lot of mistakes, but that's something that I don't want my son to have to go through to the degree that I went through it. I mean, San Clemente High School back in the 90s was horrible. The racism was rampant. I mean, it's still an issue today, but that's for another discussion. So one of the things I wanted to address though, because this is deeply concerning to me, I've seen some responses from some of the trustees from the emails that they've been getting. One in particular, one of the trustees mentioned that victimization is a part of what this cultural proficiency curriculum is. And that to me is like, since when is educating people victimizing them? You don't educate a woman about sexual harassment and then that automatically makes her a victim of it. You don't talk about people being bullies and just simply because you're talking about it, people are automatically going to say I'm bullied. That kind of false equivalent is incredibly damaging and deeply concerning. And that came from actually my trustee that represents me. So that's a big issue for me. The other thing that I've been hearing about too is that there's trustees that are saying things like, you know, we're coming from a lens of hate and that the language is triggering. So this type of fragility in terms of these types of discussions is something that needs to be really addressed and really worked through. I know that like when I talk to my own son is actually a 4th Indigenous Mexican. His grandparents are direct, you know, Aztec descendants, according to what his father tells me. And when I think about talking to him about these things and what his experience is going to be, because he actually presents as white, he lives as white as well. He lives in a neighborhood where there's nobody that's really not even blonde.
Thank you. Sorry, your time is up. Thank you. Shalone Warman. Oh, Shalone is here.
Good evening. I'm Shalon Warman, a former English teacher who retired in 2009 after teaching in the Capistrano Unified School District for 20 years. And also I have a granddaughter who is in first grade at Truman Benedict. And I am requesting that at next month's board meeting, you postpone the approval of the K through 12 cultural proficiency curriculum for many reasons. First and foremost, this is an extraordinarily inappropriate time to include any lessons about cultural proficiency, a topic that is poorly understood and nearly impossible to explain. Parents and students are distraught over the monstrous impact of the COVID restrictions. The district's #1 goal should be to help students recover any instruction that was lost over the past year, not to add questionable curriculum that appears to be politically motivated. Because of online learning, the quality and appropriateness of the CUSD curriculum has never been more carefully scrutinized. As parents ask themselves, how frequently is instruction being supplanted by indoctrination in our district? We know it occurs at the university level, so it is a legitimate question. And people are now asking, is cultural proficiency a radical ideology bent on indoctrinating our children? I think so. I think so because we have evidence of its corrosive effects. It is already being taught in some of the most expensive private schools in the nation, such as Harvard Westlake in Los Angeles. The school's plan to become an anti-racist institution was unveiled last July in a 20-page document, and parents report that it is making their kids fixate on race in ways that strike them as grotesque. One father pointed out that this movement tells his children that America is a bad country and that they bear collective racial guilt. A teacher reported, I started seeing what was happening to the kids. They are being educated in resentment and fear. It is extremely dangerous. So my question is, why must our children be subjected to a curriculum that has no track record of success? And why must we do it now? I urge you to reject this curriculum, or at the very least postpone approval until you and the families in our district have confidence that teaching this curriculum is a good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle Plossel Campbell.
Okay, good evening, Superintendent, Board of Trustees. I want to thank you for working to find a timer feature for the online speakers. Unfortunately, it is not displaying for the online speakers to see. It didn't during closed session and it has yet to do so now. But I greatly appreciate that you're working on trying to find an online timer to help with the timing for the speakers. Also, I want to appreciate all of the work that's being done to make school as normal as possible for next year. When making plans, we know how hard it is for the district to pivot quickly because CUSD is a very large ship. Our parents and PTAs are looking at how to best support our schools and students. This month, many PTAs and PTSAs are holding their annual elections for next year's executive board. These board elects are busy starting to plan for the 2021-2022 school year, while we are still putting the finishing touches on this school year. So any clarity of what the 2.0 plans are at the April board meeting will be greatly appreciated. Down to the nitty-gritty details of what will PE be. Are we going to dress out at middle school and high school? Are PTAs going to need to purchase PE clothes in advance so they are on site and ready for registration to be sold as our sole fundraisers of the year? While this may be seem very specific, details such as this one greatly impact the work of our parent volunteers. I also want to acknowledge the over $5 million figured at minimum wage contribution the PTA volunteers make to CUSD each year. That is just a donation of our time, our advocacy work, our volunteering in classrooms. And at this point, it's volunteering from home to support our classrooms. We look forward to continuing to work with the district to make CUSD a place of excellence in learning for all of our children. But any clarity you can provide us would be greatly appreciated. And I would also like to congratulate the current president and president-elect for George White PTA, Kevin Eggert, on his re-election for next year. That happened under an hour ago, so it's fresh off the boat news. Thank you.
Thank you. Susana Sarmiento? Susana?
Yes, sorry, my apologies. I was trying to unmute.
That's okay, go ahead.
Okay. Let me get my screen. Good evening, CUSD trustees. I am a parent of students at San Juan Elementary, Marco Forrester Middle School, as well as San Juan Hills High School. A graduate from San Juan Hills High School. I have also been an educator for 20 years, 15 of those in Irvine Unified. I am here to voice my overwhelming support for the cultural proficiency lessons that have been thoughtfully developed by and for this district. I believe that the CUSD district educators, counselors, and experts involved have the best interest of our students in mind and are in the best position to develop the lessons that are to be taught. These lessons and their themes on empathy, belonging, anti-racism, combating stereotypes and bias, effective communication and restorative practices, etc., provided in a safe environment by trained teachers can only strengthen our students' academic experience, while also providing us the opportunity to further these conversations at home as a family. I believe that the majority of CUSD students and parents also support the lessons that the Cultural Proficiency District Task Force has created. To reiterate, these lessons created by the Cultural Proficiency Task Force are aligned with the Fair, Accurate, Inclusive, and Respectful Education Act, Senate Bill 48, CASEL standards, American School Counselor Association standards, Teaching Tolerance standards, and the Common Core English Language Arts and Social Science California State standards. The sources and research used to develop the lessons include Second Step Teaching Tolerance, Sanford Harmony, Building Community, and Combating Hate curriculum. Now, the Irvine Unified Schools that I work for wholeheartedly embrace these programs and implement many of them to fidelity with the support of the Irvine Unified School District Board and parent community. Ideologies driven by factions of privilege or fear or falsehoods and misunderstandings and misrepresentations do not impress our Board of Trustees, nor the committed professionals that fill our school district office and school sites. Progress and empathy do. Facts and data do. Knowledge and critical thinking do. Access and equity do. Our American values do. Courage and kindness do. Risk-taking and growth mindset do. Our leaders and teachers believe our students can handle it, and let me tell you, they do. The CUSD cultural proficiency lessons proposed are a small yet important step, only one lesson per year in some cases, yet they are a critical step in committing to better climates and outcomes in CUSD, which are really needed at this time. These lessons promote celebration.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle McNutt.
Michelle, please unmute your computer.
Hello? Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Michelle, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Hi, my name is Michelle McNutt. I'm a mom of 2 students right now in Capo Unified. And I I had a talk prepared, but I'm actually going to talk about my own experience as a registered nurse, and something that I learned along the way in my career about cultural proficiency and competency. I'm a labor and delivery nurse. That's what I have been since I came back from school, or since I went to school back in the 90s. And I started school through an ADN program, so just a 2-year nursing program. I did labor and delivery for a few years in Hawaii, in California, and I've also done it now here in the Bay Area, and also now here in Orange County. When I went back to do my bachelor's to continue to my BSN, I had to take a class called Cultural Competency in Nursing. And it was probably one of the most profound classes I took in my nursing career. And the professor had an impact on me just by one thing that she said. And that was, when you walk into a room and you see your patient, instead of thinking about how different that patient is from you, you need to be in their position. And from their eyes, how different are you? How different do they see you from themselves, from their experiences, from what they are hoping for? And I think most, if not all, of our board members are moms and have all been in a vulnerable position of worrying about yourself and your baby being in labor. And can you imagine being in a room where someone doesn't see you, doesn't see your culture, doesn't see your beliefs, doesn't respect your rituals and your customs, and instead comes from a standpoint of, I'm the baseline. The way I practice what I'm going to do today is the way things should be, and your cultures, your customs, your wishes don't matter. And I will say that changed me as a nurse, and it changed me for the better. And I had to realize, not with shame, but just a realization that maybe I wasn't treating people fairly. Maybe I didn't really come from that perspective. And knowing that made me a better nurse. It gave me more empathy. And I think it had better outcomes for my patients. I felt more professionally satisfied, and having that knowledge uplifted my patients, and it uplifted me. So I just want to say that everybody has something to benefit from when we teach about different cultures and respecting differences. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Stacy Tran.
Yes, thank you, board, superintendent, all the teachers, CUSD staff, for allowing the kids to go back to school in the safest way possible, and also having the good balance of offering online education. And I'm very appreciative. My son is a high school student at San Juan Hills, and my daughter is a middle school student at Bernice Ayers, and they have gone back to school, that on their track. I was very pleased to see that orchestra is allowing kids to come back on their non-track days as well in person. And I was just really hoping that possibly the board could look at potentially allowing other classes to allow the kids to come back in person on the non-track days, especially in high school, because many of the in-person classes have only like 3, 4, 5 students there at a time. And I just think that if we're trying to help everybody and give everybody a chance to learn in the way that they feel they learn the best and in the safest way possible, I would just really like for the board to consider allowing that to occur. And I just want to thank you all.
Thank you. Our last is Mark Ernest.
I do not have Mr. Ernest on the line, but I would like to go back. I do have Shireen Smith.
Okay, great.
Okay, all right, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
It's Stephanie Smith. That's why I didn't know you were calling me. Sorry.
Oh, we apologize. Please.
That's okay. So I wanted to talk in support of opening back up our schools. I'm a mom of 7 and I've been a teacher for 20 years and I've always taken great pride in being a teacher. And I've always felt great respect from the families I've taught and even from strangers who just find out I'm a teacher. But sadly, I feel like with the way things have been handled during COVID, I've seen parents and students being frustrated with, losing respect for, and losing faith in our district and teachers. Online schooling was never really meant to be a long-term thing. It was a temporary solution to COVID. And I think teachers are doing the best they can. Everyone's doing the best they can, but it's just simply not working. I've watched my own children go from loving school, admiring their teachers and excelling in their classes to absolutely dreading online school, feeling like their teachers don't even want to be there, and they have lost out on so much learning. Our children are forced to sit in front of a computer screen for 6 hours of instruction plus homework time, and they aren't even allowed to have PE anymore. Kids are becoming depressed, isolated, and suffering a loss of learning, all as a direct result of being forced to do online school. Our district is losing a lot of great families. I've seen so many families that I love who are just fed up with not being able to be in person and going to private schools who are allowing kids to be in person, or choosing to homeschool instead, which is actually what I chose to do, even being a Capo teacher. If our schools don't completely open up very soon, we're going to continue to lose more and more families to private schools that are open. Children need school. They need in-person instruction. I was reading up on the American Academy of Pediatrics, who themselves encourage having students physically present in school. And their studies have shown that online learning is just not happening. Kids are being forced to stay home. Kids who are being forced to stay home for online learning have had an increase in behavioral health problems, rates of abuse, loss of learning, and most tragically, have we seen, even from personal friends, increase in rate of suicide among kids. Most studies, or a lot of studies, have seen that kids just don't seem to be catching COVID as easily as adults and are much less likely to spread it, especially in kids under 12. These are all things that I've read about from pediatricians. I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but I'm a mom and a teacher. And what I see happening to children who have not been allowed to go to school normally seems a lot more dangerous than the very small risk we would be taking by allowing our kids to go back to school. I understand a small percentage of people don't see they see things the way I do, and that's perfectly fine. Those people should have the option to stay online. And I'm not asking anyone who doesn't feel comfortable to send their kids back to school. I'm just asking that you don't keep my children who want to go to school from going. I'm urging everyone to, thank you so much.
Do we have anyone else, Mrs. Hayes, that we may have missed earlier on the line?
I still have a Shireen Smith who is waiting to talk, so separate than the Stephanie. So.
Oh, okay. Shireen Smith, are you there? Do you have her on the line?
Yes.
Shireen, go ahead. Shireen, you might be on mute. What does it say there? I can't read it. Do you have a connection with Shireen?
We show that she's unmuted.
Shireen Smith, are you there?
She's also registered for later in the agenda, so maybe we can connect with her.
And do we have anybody else, or was Shireen the last?
Shireen was our last speaker. Mark Ernest is not on my screen.
Okay. Well, we have 2 speakers for the consent calendar, which is next. Maybe we can come back. Let's keep moving. Now we're going to move to the consent calendar. We have 2 speakers. First is Joy Schnapper, followed by Michelle Plossel Campbell.
Dear President Bullicus, Superintendent Vitale Realty, and honored trustees, I come to you this evening to share some good news. You might say it is the silver lining behind a dark cloud. CUSD will be receiving almost $65 million in new money. Isn't that great? Some of the money will be from the state, up to $31 million, and some will be from ESSER, up to $35 million. Although it will be one-time money, we have lots of time to decide how to spend it. This is going to help our district so much. On March 3rd, this board approved to cut up to 180 teaching positions. Some of them were temporary contracts that sunset at the end of the year, but up to 80 teachers that were either probationary or permanent received a pink slip. As a result, timelines have kicked into gear to turn in paperwork, request a hearing, involve legal counsel on both sides, and begin the long, arduous process of letting these people go to find jobs in other districts around the county that are not making the same decisions as you are here in Capo. What a waste. It seems penny wise and pound foolish. Money invested in these teachers has literally walked out the doors with them. The $65 million we are receiving should be to support students. How does cutting teachers and support staff help our kids? Item 17 in tonight's consent calendar says, there is no financial impact to the approval of these management job descriptions as they are funded through a cost savings from board-approved reductions on March 3rd, 2021. The optics of this statement could lead one to believe that it is the RIF teachers who are paying for this restructuring. Again, I ask, how will any of this help our kids? It has also come to CUE's attention that the board intends on lowering the student to counselor ratio. We can agree this is good for kids. In addition to a focus on social emotional learning, for years this board has also been charged with lowering overall class sizes, and letting teachers go seems counterintuitive to that mission, especially now when we will have more money than we originally predicted. Adding counselors must be negotiated. Please know that we, in good conscience, cannot foresee robbing Peter to pay Paul, meaning that we should not be hiring new counselors in lieu of bringing back teachers that have lost their jobs. You need to seriously reconsider the layoffs from the March 3rd meeting. One more year will not affect the structural deficit that you are being led to believe is imminent. Our students desperately need this hands-on help. What appears to be a reshuffling of management at the district office does not help students when they are sitting in classrooms across this vast district. Highly trained experts working directly with students make the difference. Let's go back and look at the restructuring plan. 24 district positions were eliminated March 3rd as compared to the overwhelming number of 180. That means thus far that 12% of the reduction is at the district office and 88% of the reduction is in certificated staff. Now, 13 renamed positions are being considered in item 17 tonight. Simple math would say this is lopsided at the very least. On the surface, 24 minus 13 gives a net difference of eliminating a total of 11 positions. However, please take into account that 5 of those positions are actually certificated staff.
Thank you, Joy.
Are being placed back into classrooms.
Thank you. Michelle Postle Campbell.
Hi. Good evening. I just want to confirm that we have 5 minutes to speak on consent and not 3 because you address all consent items under one thing. And I don't know if Joy got her full 5 minutes.
Ms. Hayes, what was on the timer?
The timer was set for 3 minutes, so we could go back and add 2 minutes, but it's usually if you're talking about more than one item. So it's 3 minutes for one item, 5 minutes for multiple items.
Okay, Michelle, if you want to proceed.
Okay. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent. I am speaking as a proud parent of 2 and not in any other capacity tonight on this item. I am glad to see that the restructuring plan and newly created positions on tonight's agenda. I wish the work of this item had been done at the same night as the resolution number 2021-34 was voted upon. It would have created clarity over district actions rather than the confusion created. I'm excited to see the creation of a Director to Cultural Proficiency, Equity, Access, and Social Emotional Learning. I truly hope that this position is filled by one who is passionate about equity, student and adult mental health, who is compassionate yet strong, who is a fierce advocate for all of our students, including those from historically marginalized communities and populations. I can see that this is a job that will be greatly and positively impact so many and be a benefit to our students. I am, though, hoping to hear what the fiscal impacts of these new positions are. They do come at a cost, and while we are saving still from the cuts made in the previous meeting, what will the cost of these positions be? When it is stated cuts must be made to overcome a structural deficit, and then positions are added back. To show transparency in actions to the public, the expense of the new or added positions needs to be shared. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any trustees that would like to pull a consent item? Okay, may I have a motion to approve?
Judy, I'm down.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Yes, Amy.
So actually, I've been planning on pulling item 17.
17, okay.
Thank you.
Are there any others? Okay, so if I may have a motion to approve the consent calendar 1 through 22, with the exception of 17 and 20. 20 was pulled by staff.
So moved.
Moved by Trustee McNicholas. Second. And seconded by Trustee Jones. Mrs. Hayes, please call the roll.
Student Advisor Bosker.
Aye.
Trustee Bronstein.
Aye.
Trustee Volikas.
Aye.
Trustee Castellanos.
Aye.
Trustee Davis.
Aye.
Trustee Hanachek.
Aye.
Trustee Jones.
Aye.
Trustee McNicholas.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0 with a preferential vote of aye from Student Advisor Bosker.
President Volikas, I was texting with Shereen Smith, and she says that she was having technical difficulties and she will just follow up with email.
Thank you. Okay, then let's start with item number 23, the second reading, temporary board policy T5121.1, grades evaluation of student achievement. I'd like to recognize Susan Holliday, Chief Administrative Officer, Education and Support Services, to present this item.
Thank you, Board President Volikas, trustees, and Superintendent Patel-Brulati. Tonight we present for trustees the second reading of temporary board policy T5121.1, grades evaluation of student achievement. On February 17, 2021, trustees directed staff to return to the March 17th board meeting with updated language that reflected both the credit, no credit, and grading system. The proposed temporary policy and language defaults to credit, no credit, and provides students' parents the option to select a letter grade in lieu of a credit. Staff developed 2 options to reflect this outcome. Each option implements the process a little bit differently. Option 1 was directed by the board from the February 17th board meeting, and option 2 came from subsequent feedback. Option 1 is in red text, so you can delineate that in the policy, and option 2 is in blue text. Option 1 in red text allows students that earn an A to default to the letter A, and students who earn a B, C, D will default to a credit mark and will have the option to select a credit in lieu of that grade. So that is option 1. Option 2 in blue is a slightly different. Students who earn an A or a B will default to an automatic A or a B. Students who earn a B, though, will have the option to choose credit in lieu of that letter grade. And students who earn a C or a D will default to credit mark, and students who earn a C will have the option to select a letter grade as well. A student who earned a D would not have that credit option. Both options have a failing grade of defaulting to no credit. So that's in both options. So they are very similar, but I'm going to explain how they're different. So option 2, the letter grade of a B would default to a letter grade and not to credit, but they could still ask for credit, which is really important. And the other difference between the 2 options is that option 2, the grade of a D, defaults to credit without the option of a letter grade. So following tonight's direction from trustees on this policy, our middle school PE teachers will have an extension to do this work because it's important that they are able to go back and work with parents and students on what mark they would want. So staff recommends at this time that the Board of Trustees direct staff on what option they would recommend and what additional changes they'd like to make. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Holliday. We do have one speaker, Michelle Postle Campbell.
Good evening, board and superintendent. I want to thank everyone for their hard work on grading for PE and trying to look at it through a lens of equity. There are great benefits to both options presented by Dr. Holliday tonight. Option 1 is a little clearer. Option 2 has a lot of if then that's that could be confusing to a lot of our families. I do think option 1 grants us the opportunity to ask for and allow for student voice in the final grading. And I think it's just probably a little clearer and less confusing in the long run, but both options are really solid. But I just want to thank you and appreciate the work you've done on making sure that student voice and grading for PE in this crazy year of online Apex PE, BAMS PE, teachers, rock stars is actually acknowledged and recognized. So I appreciate all of your work on this and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Luck, we might need that tonight. Okay, let's open it up for any trustee questions or feedback at this point, if there is any. You've had a lot of discussion. If there is no comments, oh, okay, Trustee McNicholas.
Okay, I think most of my questions were probably answered by staff, but I wanted to bring a couple of them up in public. And one of them is the difference in the wording between option 1 and option 2, as far as talking about each semester, quarter versus current semester and quarter. As long as the language is consistent in either one, I'm okay with that. The other one was, and I'm surprised Keela didn't catch this, that when you say a student has the option to select a grade, I wanted to make sure it wasn't just select any grade you'd like. You know, I know what I would choose, but can choose to be evaluated by a grade or choose to be evaluated credit or no credit. I don't think that's going to happen, but in our middle schoolers are a little crazy. They might come up with that. Let's see, there was one other. The other thing was, is this? I mean, I know we started this because of some of the inadequacies in the Apex curriculum, and I know again our rockstar teachers have done a lot of work to develop a new curriculum, and I think it was confirmed that at least middle schoolers are no longer using Apex, are using the, if you want to call it the BAMS curriculum or the new curriculum. I'm just based on anecdotal things, it doesn't appear to be the same. Things aren't happening. Oh, they're doing it this way. They're doing it, this teacher's doing it this way. And I know, I believe you said that through Canvas, individual teachers are allowed to add some of their own specifics. So I want to make sure that was happening, and that the policy is true or applies to whether you had Apex in the first quarter, BAMS in the second quarter, whatever, it's going to apply whatever curriculum, and it's going to go through this year, the whole year, even spring and third and fourth quarter. I guess that's kind of the sum of my questions.
So to clarify, correct, our teachers have worked together in their professional learning community. I have to say our PE teachers have been amazing coming together and really coordinating and collaborating and aligning so that there's some tight around their content they're delivering, and then loose based on their PLC at their school site of how they want to organize those standards and deliver them. So correct, they are creating both middle and high school their own online curriculum. So I think to better address that in the policy, we'd have to say Apex/online, because Apex was the beginning of the year, but the end of the year, third quarter and second semester, or I would say on online deliver content, which we could just reflect that in the policy Apex/online to clarify that it would apply for both of those semesters and all those quarters.
Any other comments? Trustee Jones.
So it was I who have inserted option 2, and that was the result of a conversation I had over a weekend, a phone conversation with Mr. Jake Jerome, a PE teacher at, I think, Short Cliffs? BAMS. Okay, I knew it was one of the two, and I guessed wrong. And we talked quite extensively, and we, of course, wanted to make sure that students were not harmed. And we also wanted to make sure that PE teachers, many of whom are carrying very heavy loads right now, didn't end up having to do a tremendous amount of extra work. So after extensive discussion, we decided, okay, an A is an A, no matter what happens. If you got an A, you got an A. If you got an F, you got a no credit. Then we decided a B would be a B, but there might be some kids who tend to get all A's, and we wanted them to be able to request credit instead. We felt this would be a small number, not a number that the teaching staff would be overly burdened by, but to give kids that flexibility. For a C, we would give credit, but would allow students to request a C if they were somewhat lower performing, and a C would help them. And then a D would be simply credit. So the idea was to help kids as much as possible in this situation, but also not unduly burden the PE teachers. So that was the logic behind that. I don't have a big problem with it being option one instead, but I do think that that is more work for PE teachers, and I believe that was the objection they had to it.
Okay, I think we have to go about this a little differently tonight. I'd like to know if we have a motion to vote for this temporary policy. And then I believe, Mrs. Hayes, we're going to have to go through and do a vote on option one and then do a second vote on option two, or how did you feel we were going to delineate between this option two?
So I would ask that the trustees make a motion either on option one or option two and then vote. And if that motion passes, then the other one is no longer an option. And if you have an amendment or typos or whatever, we should make sure that's included.
I move to approve option two. I second.
Okay. We have a motion from Trustee Davis to approve option number two. And do we have a second? And a second from Trustee Bronstein.
I have one more question.
Yes.
Or just maybe to the trustees. The idea that students who earn a D will default to a credit and a letter grade is not option. I know it would probably apply to a small number of students, but students who are at the 1.0 and below grade point average might want the D. Is that, I mean, if we're given every option to every group, I don't know how other trustees feel about that.
I'm sorry, were you saying B or D?
D is in not just above an F.
Okay.
That there might be students, I mean, we don't see them very often, but if there's students that are in that D and F category, they might want the D. Help bring them up.
It's pretty rare. I don't.
Okay, well, I also had an email from a family that said, even though they were getting an A, they wanted to take credit because an A would lower their grade. Just saying.
I don't know, Martha. Both of these options have D as in Dolly, default to the credit card.
Well, I'm saying, if we go with option two, do we not want to consider that somebody might want a D instead of a no credit?
I'm going to back up Martha a little bit because at Shortlist, they did a little, it was a survey. Many of the students that are getting Ds and Fs and PE are getting them in their other classes as well. So I'll tell you, if I'm kind of all Fs and I have a chance to have a D to kind of pull out, resurrect my 7th grade year. And I know if we're going to look at all students, I mean, it's kind of that way. How many will actually exercised that or care, I don't know, but they might have felt really proud about their DE because it's been so hard. I don't know.
Especially in option 2, we've given, it's not like it's either A or everything else. We've given everybody an option except D.
So I'm fine to amend that motion and add to the language, students who earn a C will have the option to select a letter grade, or students who earn a D will have the option to select a letter grade.
So our C and D language would be identical.
Correct.
Friendly amendment, I'll go along with that. I don't know whether that's parliamentary procedure or not.
Okay, and that is the amendment to option 2, correct?
Yes. That's
Okay.
the one that's on the floor.
Do we have someone that could reread then how that's going to be option 2? Can you read?
Yes,
the
we're
amendment?
tag teaming this tonight, so Dr. Holliday and I. So just to make sure for the amendments that we've discussed, first of all, that we have consistency in the language between semester, quarter, current, the information that Trustee McNicholas shared. That the student had, we are amending it to say the student has the option to be evaluated by the letter grade. That we would add the language, add online to APEX to describe the education courses. So the APEX and online physical education courses will be graded. And then finally, students who earned a D would have the option to select a letter grade.
So under the second star where it says letter grades of C or D will default to a CR. And then the third star says at the end of each quarter semester, students who received, you could say a C or a D grade will be provided the opportunity to select a D, C or D letter grade in lieu of CR, and then eliminate the fourth star. Is that okay?
I would like you to reread that bullet point, please, as how it's going to be.
That's exactly how I wrote it in my notes, Martha. So I would cross off that fourth bullet, 1, 2, 3, 4, because you're modifying the bullet ahead of it that says at the end of each quarter and semester, students who received a C or D, so we insert or D, letter grade will be provided the opportunity to select a C or a D letter grade in lieu of a credit. So we just inserting D right there. Right.
Thank you.
Okay. So with this adjustment, we are going to take a vote on option 2. Mrs. Hayes, could you please call roll?
With that friendly amendment included.
With that amendment included for temporary board policy T5121.1.
Student Advisor Oscar. Trustee Bronstein. Trustee Bullicus.
Aye.
Trustee Castellanos.
Aye.
Trustee Davis.
Aye.
Trustee Hanachek.
Aye.
Trustee Jones.
Aye.
Trustee McNicholas.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0 to approve temporary board policy T5121.1, grades and evaluation of student achievement as amended for option 2. Student has the option who earn a C or D will be provided an opportunity to choose a C or D with a preferential vote of aye from Student Advisor Foskar.
Thank you. Okay, we are on to item number 24, process for reopening of schools 2.0 for the 2021-2022 school year. I'd like to recognize Gregory Merwin, Chief Academic Officer, Education and Support Services, to present this item.
Thank you very much, President Bullicus, Trustees, Superintendent Batal, Brule team. Tonight, we present item 24, the process for reopening of schools 2.0 for the 2021-2022 school year. Our presentation this evening will provide trustees and the community with an overview of our process in developing a plan to reopen school for the 2021-2022 school year. Tonight, I am joined by CUEA President Joy Schnapper, CSEA President Rhonda Whalen, Teamsters Business Representative Sam Carlin, and Assistant Superintendent Rich Montgomery. as we focus on the process of developing a successful and effective reopening schools plan. We will return on April 21st to present a draft reopening plan to the board for discussion. Our presentation this evening will provide you with the following information: the board's priorities for reopening school, the CAPE team structure of our reopening lead team, feedback and involvement of parents and students, work accomplished by our reopening team to lay the foundation for planning, the development of focus areas and action labs to address those areas of the plan, a list of the action lab teams who are developing the different sections of the reopening plan, and finally, the process that the action labs are following that is built on trust and a collaboration with a focus on results. Next slide, please. At the January 20th, 2021 board meeting, trustees directed the superintendent to, quote, open school as normal if we are able to do so, as determined by the criteria established by the California Department of Public Health for the 2021-2022 school year. This is the board's first priority. However, as noted on this slide, the ability to open with a normal 5-day per week schedule with regular size classes relies on state and county restrictions. As a public entity, the district is required to meet a standard of care for its students, and CDPH and the Orange County Healthcare Agency guidance provides that standard for us. So it should be clearly stated that the reopening planning for next year is an effort to be proactive with successful plans in case we are not permitted by the state and the county to open with full-time traditional schedules, programs, and classrooms. Next slide, please. The next slides provide the board's priorities for reopening 2.0, again, if we are not permitted to open without restrictions. First, provide to the greatest extent possible a normal experience for middle school and high school students by restoring and bringing back PE and elective courses that were previously cut for the 2020-2021 school year, and by reinstating the graduation board policy requirement of 220 credits, and include sports, performing arts, clubs, and extracurricular activities. Second, provide daily live instruction for middle school and high school students, where all students benefit from live instruction during both their in-person and virtual learning days. And support for 6th grade students who would benefit from additional support by providing an option to be on campus 4 full days per week. Next slide, please. Third, provide elementary students who need additional intensive support and intervention and who have experienced learning loss by providing them with academic intervention. And finally, to create a 100% online learning program option TK through 12 through CalPrep Capo Virtual, by providing daily live instruction and a traditional bell schedule for those students who choose to be online. I'd like to emphasize here as well that this is a value of the board to provide this 100% online learning program option, even if it is possible to open with a normal schedule and regular size classes. At this point now, I will turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Rich Montgomery.
Thank you, Dr. Merwin. Good evening, and thank you, trustees and Superintendent Vital Brulte. You can advance the slide, Corey. Thank you. In 2019, CUSD created CAPE teams, which, as you can see on this slide, are teams made up of key employee stakeholder groups that come together to solve a myriad of both site level and district level challenges. A key cornerstone of our district CAPE teams is to engage in collaboration sessions with a focus on constant improvement. Thank you, Corey. Because of the success that we have seen with our site and district level CAPE teams, we are using the same process with our reopening 2.0 plan. Upon receiving the board priorities that Dr. Merwin just reviewed, we put together a CAPE team made up of employees from CUEA, CSEA, Teamsters, and site administration to form a reopening 2.0 CAPE team. Dr. Merwin will now share how the voice of our parents and students has been heard.
Next slide, please. Thank you. Parent and student input is critical to the reopening plan. As shared on this slide, we have engaged parents and high school students to learn about their priorities, what they value the most about our current reopening plan for this school year, and what suggestions they have for improvement for the 2021-2022 school year. Through a series of surveys, focus groups, and an online parent feedback form, we continue to solicit feedback from our parents and students to provide us with additional guidance for developing a strong and responsive reopening plan. As you can see from this slide, a series of surveys from November through January, 5 different parent focus groups with our CUC PTSA presidents, our CAC parent representatives, and our DLAC parent representatives. And just for those who are not familiar with the acronym alphabet soup, CAC is Community Advisory Committee, which is our special education parent representatives, and DLAC is our District English Language Acquisition Committee, which is our parents of students who are learning English as a second language. So you can see here from this slide a significant outreach, understanding the importance of input of our parents and our students. I would now like to turn it over to Ms. Joy Schnapper for the next slide.
Thank you, Dr. Merwin, appreciate it. So on this slide, you can see some of the work that we've accomplished. Up in the corner, you can see that we have our current plan. So as we affectionately have referred to reopening 1.0, we are using what we normally use in a classroom, the Plan, Do, Study, Act. And so we are looking at what worked in 1.0 and what improvements we can make. And as teachers love analogies, I came up with, last year we were building the plane while we're flying it, and this year we have a runway. So kind of think of it that way. So the survey results that were shared within our original CAPE team began with homework. We looked at data that was shared with us from the special ed survey that came out in December 2020. There was an elementary school, middle school, high school family survey that went out. There was a staff survey that went out in January 2021. And our goal as a team is to continue with the surveys because we find it's the best way to collect the information from all of our stakeholder groups around this large district. And then the third piece of this would be the interest-based approach, or the interest-based, well, we use interest-based bargaining, but the interest-based problem-solving approach. So I'm going to read something to you from one of the cards that I received that really does a good job of explaining it. It's an approach to problem solving in a non-adversarial means of collectively working together in an effort to achieve mutually beneficial outcomes in any given solution. Rhonda's going to go into the details of interest-based bargaining for you in a few slides from now. Thank you. Next slide, Corey, thanks.
While creating the reopening plan for this year, we realized that we had too many people trying to consider too many things that should be part of the plan. From that experience, we learned that it would make more sense to break into smaller, more focused groups for reopening 2.0. Using smaller groups allows each topic to be thoroughly explored and addressed in the plan. It also reduces the amount of time needed to create a thoughtful, comprehensive plan in time for trustee consideration at the April board meeting. Because of our concerns about timeline and quality, we created 11 focused groups called Action Labs. The Action Labs address specific topics in areas of education and support services, business services, human resources, and communications.
Thank you, Corey. All right, so in recognition of the vast amount of work to be done, as Rhonda just shared, as well as the need to include key content-specific experts for each of the focus areas, we decided, again, as Rhonda shared, to create what we call Action Labs. So these Action Labs are small teams that are made up of strategically selected district staff with expertise in any given area. The Action Labs have a singular focus. They are only going to be addressing one topic. And the idea is to improve upon, as Joy shared, an already existing foundation. Finally, we are going to create a plan with a sense of urgency, recognizing that time is of the essence. Our action labs are coming together and meeting at least weekly at this point to present a plan to the CAPE team, which will ultimately be shared with our board.
So as we highlighted, this is really a revamp. Oh, next slide, please. Thank you. So this is really a revamp of the CAPE team, Model 1, which was created in a time of emergency and urgency. This version came with some lead time and with critical change and growth as it comes with input from key leaders and staff, which have been broken down to these action labs out of necessity. This slide is a visual aid to show and organize each of these action labs. And these 11 action plan groups are made up of key leaders and experienced staff, as highlighted, which are contributing their expertise and foresight. Then this feedback and recommendations will be given to the respective CAPE team you see, with the goal to formulate a well-rounded and inclusive plan to present to the board. It's the visual aid.
Next slide, please. Here we go. So we are using the interest-based process, which includes telling a story to gather facts, defining interests to determine what we want to accomplish, and creating options that will make those goals happen. In the case of reopening 2.0 planning, we use the following information to develop our story: board priorities, parent, student, and employee surveys, reopening plan for 2020-2021, information gathered from our action lab leaders about what worked and what didn't work and how best to meet the needs of our students in the 2021-2022 plan. Based on the information we collected to create the story, we gathered input from all representatives to determine what we would like to accomplish. The next step is to create options to be included in the final reopening 2.0 plan to be considered by trustees. Next slide, please.
So as you see on this slide, from the reopening 2.0 CAPE team to the action labs addressing each focus area, this exceptional team of classified, certificated teamsters and management is working together to develop an outstanding draft plan that we look forward to presenting to trustees for discussion at the April 21st board meeting. And again, this reopening 2.0 plan is if we are unable to open as normal, we need to have a proactive, responsive plan to be ready in case those limitations are still in place as per the California Department of Public Health and Orange County Healthcare Agency. So therefore, we are here with this outstanding group to develop this plan and present it to trustees at the April 21st board meeting for discussion. Next slide, please.
What you see before you are core values that our CAPE teams have agreed to. We are committed to trusting each other and assuming the best intent. We are committed to collaborating together in support of the success of each of our students. And finally, we recognize the hardships and the challenges faced by all of our stakeholders during this pandemic. We want to thank our staff who have responded to new ways of supporting students since right about this time last year. We appreciate the incredible support provided by our parents through these unprecedented times. We want to thank our Board of Trustees for their ongoing leadership and support. And most importantly, we want to recognize what our students have gone through. The way they have adapted and the grit they have shown has been nothing short of remarkable. We list results as the final core value because we are truly committed to achieving results that ultimately translate into increased student achievement. This concludes our presentation on the process to reopen schools for the 2021-22 school year. We are happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
I just want to say one thing. I know we have a lot of speakers on this topic, and I would imagine that the speakers, like earlier this evening, are not necessarily on the process, but the actual content of what's happening. So there are a few things I just wanted to share. One is that we are working on how we can get more kids back sooner safely. You know, if that is the student's desire, knowing that we do have families that will want to be online. Looking at what can we do. We're planning for how we can be as normal as possible for fall, given the guidelines. We're looking at class size and the 4 feet. We're doing the analysis of facilities to see again, what can we do? We're already planning for intervention and summer school and really thinking all of these things through together. So I know for many families who spoke earlier and who probably are going to speak in a few minutes, they really want to know when, what, how, and again, that will be April 21st. If we have more information before then we would put information out to our families saying this is what we can do sooner. But in the interim, I really appreciate the planning process that's going into all of us working together to try to figure this out.
Thank you. And with that, we do have listed 18 speakers. We will start with Dr. Jonathan Oth.
Dr. Oth is not with us.
I am here actually. Sorry, I just needed to unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Oh, very good. Sorry. So I'm Dr. Jonathan Oth. I'm a pediatrician and father of 2 children at Moulton Elementary in Capo. So thanks for everything you guys have done to keep the schools open as much as they are. But I talk with families about this every day, you know, the risk of going to school, the risk of not going to school. And I think the decision to go back to a more full-time process really kind of does boil down to what we know of the risks are to children from COVID directly. And the risks that I see are really not so much about the direct risk, but the indirect risks of not going. Every day in my office, I see obesity, I see mental health problems. Something like 75% of kids that I'm seeing in their well visits, their BMIs have gone up. We all know the negative impact to children's education of not being able to attend really a full-time learning. I mean, the option of doing extended learning is definitely not up to par with what we would get with a full-time experience. Children are at very low risk of dying from COVID. We know that. It's about 1 in 30,000 in California. And if you take all comers, healthy children, it's probably closer to 1 in about 100,000. The risk of hospitalization is very low, maybe 1 in 400 healthy children. The risk of the multisystem inflammatory syndrome, maybe 1 in 1,000. Or probably much less than that even. We don't fully really appreciate that. But as we get more and more vaccinations out there in the community, we know that the risk to families and the risk to teachers and other school staff is going to continue to drop. The risk of spread in our community is just going to continue to drop. And because the risk of COVID directly to these children is so low, we really have to consider the risks of not having them go back in person and really full-time in-person learning. To me, that balance of risk between those choices, full-time versus continuing on with some hybrid model as we see it, it doesn't equate, it doesn't compute to me very well. But thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you. Veronica Olga. Do we have Veronica?
We do not.
Okay. How about Rochelle Steffen?
I'm here and I'm Rochelle Steffen. I have 3 kids and I'm actually a proud mother and parent of a Capo US school district. And I'm so grateful for all of your hard work and your openness to the incorporation of the staff and parents, especially throughout this pandemic. It's been very eye-opening, and I'm so grateful for all the things that you and everybody in that room right now that I'm looking at have done for our kids. I think most of the parents will consider us all grateful, at least the ones in the state of California, that our kids are in school right now. And I definitely know that this has been very difficult for you all. But just like everybody else who's going to probably comment on this, and that is, we want normalcy and we want our kids back in school. But I think the biggest thing for us to understand is that we have to stand up for this generation of our children right now. That's our calling in these difficult times, and they're being sacrificed on the altar of fear of the adults that are supposed to have their best interest at heart. And I really feel like we are standing on a precipice of a youth mental health crisis right now. And I have a very personal experience with suicide and mental health. And I really feel like that this is something that the district and the teachers and the staff and the parents all need to work together as we incorporate this 2.0 and this CAPE, that somehow that this is worked in there where the kids have counselors, access to counselors, and kids have access to anyone that they can talk to and speak to for mental health. That is my biggest thing, and also trying to get it back to normal as soon as possible. We love these kids. We absolutely do. And I know that everybody in that room and everybody listening understands how much we love these children. And as we go through this process of the 2.0, I just really want to challenge everyone and challenge you administrators, that as you look at your children, your great-grandchildren, your children, and especially the students at Capo USD, when you look them into the eyes, you need to ask yourself, are you fighting enough for these kids? Are we doing everything we can to make their world as beautiful as it can be in such difficult circumstances? And I really think we can do this, and we must do this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's see, Colleen Bryan.
Colleen is with us here in the audience. She'll approach the podium.
I'm actually going to get emotional because it's just nice to be here in person, but I'm going to try to share what I want to say today. But I am here in person because our kids need to be in school in person. I got emotional also when I heard that you're going to do in the 6th grade plan, you're going to have the kids go 4 days a week for that transition. I wish that was possible for my little girl, because the other day I told her to just go to the office and she didn't even know where the office was, because that's how removed they are from their school experience. I'm going to have 3 kids in the district. I'm going to read from my son's thoughts that he shared with me. He's at volleyball practice, so woohoo for that. And he shares, hybrid school is just not as engaging. When I'm not able to go, I lack connection. And with my teachers and my fellow peers. With this lack of connection comes a lack of focus. And we see this across the board. Our kids need to be in school so that they can be heard, so they can learn, so that they can ask questions. At the beginning of this pandemic, virtual and hybrid learning was an understandable situation and temporary exercise that I appreciate the efforts that our district has made. But at this point in the year, we're all tired. It's abundantly clear that there is a complacency with distance learning. And even if you want to do that live instruction where they're like watching a YouTube video that just happens to be their teacher, that this distance learning is stifling our students' academic, social, and mental well-being. As a member of the Parent Association, I was heartened because the court found in favor of returning students to school in San Diego. I read from the decision. The court thereafter concluded that the distinctive and priceless function of education in our society warrants, indeed compels, our treating it as a fundamental interest. The California Supreme Court has reached this conclusion time and time again. Beyond the color codes of our state, courts are protecting our students' right to education. So I truly hope that our district moves towards that. I hope that our district can serve as a beacon of hope across the state and give students the option to return to campus full-time in person. Our students have given up enough and they deserve better. They deserve to be in person to have that experience, which is their state-given right. Thank you.
Thank you. Darcy R. Do we have
Darcy, go ahead.
I spoke earlier, but I could just reiterate how desperate these kids are to have normalcy, to return to school, to have their needs, like Colleen said, be a priority for our state. I think we can, in Capital Unified, we can be the example for the state. We've already gone back earlier than most districts in our whole state. We have a very low dashboard of cases. We can push forward. We can be the example of our state and get these kids back in school full-time, 5 days a week. Please do not make the older kids only 2 days. We should return April 1st, April 15th, May 1st. We should return. We'll be in the orange tier by then. There's no reason why people shouldn't be able to be more full-time and more fully present. I spoke earlier, so I don't want to use the time, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Christy Parker. Is that Christy I hear? No? Okay, Stephanie Smith. Now at this point, I'm not sure if it's Shireen or Stephanie Smith. No, Stephanie? Okay. Amy Hada? Amy, are you there? No? Okay. Lisa Zollinger. Lisa Zollinger? Not live. Lisa Saunders? Haven't logged in. Mackenzie Bingham?
No, we do not have her.
No? Okay. Maybe they heard the superintendent's speech comments and decided they didn't need to. How about Lindsay Matthews?
Yes, Lindsay, go ahead.
Yes, I'm here. Good evening. I'm introducing myself as part of the parent association that is also happening here in our district. I have 5 kids, one who went through the district K through 12, graduated last year. I've got 1 in high school, 2 in middle school, and 1 in elementary currently. I've been preparing all week, thinking about stats and studies. I've been researching, but I came to the conclusion that what you really need to hear is firsthand what's going on in the district, not some number that I found. I feel like our kids are suffering. I feel like they need to be in school, as most of us do, but I want to tell you about my son in high school. Amazing student, AP classes, honor classes, did great on his ACT. What is he doing now? He's failing. Literally F's in his classes. He has no hope for his future. Can't go to the school. He doesn't think he can get into the school that he once wanted to for the good program in which he wanted to attend. His whole life has now changed because he's not in person. I called the school as a concerned mom. What do I get? I get, oh, don't worry, you're not alone. As if that's supposed to make me feel better, that it's not just my son. So it takes 2 weeks to get into the school counselor, and who knows what's to happen next. The school is failing him. And then I go to my 8th grader. Couldn't understand algebra over a computer. He'll have to take it next year. Spanish, same thing. He's not communicating enough over the computer. He will have to take it next year. Repeating in 8th grade in his 9th grade year. And let's not forget that his best friend, Jaden Bonnet, committed suicide on November 30th. Never forget what it's done to our children. So yes, the stats and the studies might help you understand, but look deep at what's going on right here in our district. Look around and see that it's not working. Our kids need to be in full time. Next year, for sure, but we can do better, and we can do it as soon as right after spring break. And I hope that that's something that we consider so that our kids can maybe catch up a little bit from what has been lost this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Silverthorne.
Elizabeth, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Liz Silverthorne.
I am a proud CUSD graduate. I was a CUSD teacher, and I'm now a parent of 3 children attending CUSD schools. This district has done a remarkable job of opening our schools as fully as the law has allowed and implementing health and safety protocols to do so safely. However, despite the heroic efforts of our CUSD teachers and administrators, distance learning is failing our kids, particularly our middle and high schoolers, not because of failures of its implementation, but because of the failure of distance learning as a model for education. 1 year into the pandemic and 1 year into distance and hybrid models of learning, our kids' mental and emotional health is suffering. Our kids' learning is suffering. The only remedy is a full and immediate return to full-time classroom instruction. On Monday, a judge in the San Diego Area Parent Association lawsuit issued a ruling blocking the state from enforcing its selective, vague, and arbitrary rules regarding school reopenings across the state. According to this ruling, full-time classroom education is now permitted for all California students at all grade levels. We do not need to wait until the fall to bring our children back to the classroom full-time. We do not need to watch our children flounder and fail for another 3 months. This district has put effective health and safety protocols into place. We can continue all these, but now that 6 feet of distancing is not required, we can bring our children full-time back to classrooms immediately where they belong. On March 30th, the judge will issue a final decision in the Parent Association case against the state of California. Provided that decision upholds Monday's ruling, I call on CUSD to plan for and offer a full and immediate return to campus for all students following our spring break in April. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Bagley.
Jessica, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to just reiterate the sentiments of the previous speakers. I am a parent of 2 high school students, and at this point, I see my children struggling. My daughter, who is very, very social, has become suicidal. And now in the course of our lives, she is taking the time to see both a psychiatrist with medication and a therapist to combat the problems of mental health that have affected her through distance learning. I've been talking to administrators at her high school to try and get her back in person. I have 2 health officials that have backed up her requirement, her mental needs to be in the classroom full time. And I don't believe that she is out of the ordinary, and all of our students need to be in school full time. While I can appreciate the efforts that the board is making for next year's calendar year, I would hope that as one of the few schools in or districts in the state that opened in-person learning early, that measures are being taken by the board to get them into the classroom before this school year is over. It's past the point where I feel it's feasible, and with all of the science to back up why students should be in the classroom, the detriments and the harm that it's doing by them not being in person far exceeds the fear of the virus itself. And I hope that that is the main priority of this district, is to get all of the students back in school and at least give these kids, these middle and high schoolers, their social lives back with sports and all kinds of social activities, because that has been just as detrimental as not having an in-person teacher for them to talk to and to learn from on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. And Julie Robertson.
Julie, go ahead.
Julie, are you there?
Hear me?
Yes, Julie Robertson.
Good, thank you. Hi, I am a teacher here in Capistrano Unified. I teach at Canyon Vista. And at the beginning of the year, I started with a 4-5 and then changed to 4th grade in the morning. and ELP in the afternoon. Out of my 15 fourth grade students, I've lost one of them to private school. And it was not because the parent was unhappy with our school, but because they got into private school that offered full day face-to-face instruction. I believe with many of the teachers getting vaccinated and the continuing protocols of taking temperatures, washing hands, lower class size, wearing masks, and wiping desks down between the breaks, we must bring our students back full-time. With the monies from the government, we should be able to lower the class size to continue the social distancing and make up for lost learning. With only 2.5 hours of face-to-face instruction, it is near impossible to educate our students to all of the standards at the high level our families are accustomed to. Let's stop our students from leaving our outstanding schools to go to private schools. Our students need to be back in school full day with limited number of students in the classroom. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Julie. Kelly Hubbard. Do we have Kelly?
Kelly, go ahead.
Oh, hello?
Hi.
Can you hear me? Oh, that's because I was logged into 2 places. Can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to speak. And I mirror what everybody else is saying in regards to a return to school full-time sooner than next year. While I do appreciate the hard work and the dedication that's going into safely planning for a reopening for the 2021-22 school year, we are overlooking the well-being of our students from this current school year who need this option now. Because Orange County met the criteria to advance to the red tier in the reopening blueprint, we should be able to allow our kids to return to full-time school now, especially those who are already attending in person. With such a low level in-person enrollment for our secondary schools, it has come to the attention of many parents and families that some schools are permitting, quote, at-risk students to attend 4 hybrid days in person on a case-by-case basis, while other schools have combined both hybrid groups into only 2 days on campus, not allowing for the 4 days a week in-person option. This inequity is felt by parents and families who feel this choice should be the same for their students, regardless of which high school they attend in the same district. For some students like my son, who is a senior and already missed out on so many senior year activities, and his negative impact is so apparent in his overall mental and emotional well-being, having to feel the additional stigma of a quote at-risk label in order to return to school in these final months of his high school career seems cruel and unfair, regardless that he would clearly meet the criteria to be deemed at risk. When I asked my son if he was okay with the current hybrid model for the remainder of the year, his response was, "How can I be okay with being on a screen all day for my senior year?" This year has resurfaced a lot of struggles my son experienced when he lost his dad to cancer his freshman year. So I vowed to fight for him and his mental well-being and hope that you can empathize with him and so many other students who are equally struggling, yet so far have remained silent. Like everybody has already said, we can do this safely. We can give students an option to return to campus full time, since those who are already 100% distant learning will probably choose to remain that way. And it seems to be a fair compromise for so many students who may not be able to speak out for fear of being stigmatized and singled out and negatively labeled. This district and our board states that they pride themselves in providing a safe school environment that allows all students equal access and opportunities. But I question that with the current situation where only high-risk students.
I'm so sorry, your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I am sorry for your family's loss. Katie Mananetta Oporto.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead, Katie.
Excellent. My name is Dr. Katie Mineta, and I'm a licensed psychologist in the state of California. I'm also the mom of a third grader here at Capo. I have been asking questions, asking teachers and students here at Capo and also at Orange Unified School District to see what everybody thinks about the plan here and what they're doing there. So I was specifically asking elementary school teachers, students, and their parents about their experiences. Orange Unified has actually been using a true hybrid model in which each teacher offers both in-person as well as online learning through Zoom in the same classroom. So when their COVID numbers, when their COVID numbers went up, parents brought their kids home and they just logged on to the classroom through Zoom. And when things got safer, parents sent their kids back into the classroom. So there was no switching of teachers like we've done here at Capo. They don't actually even use Canvas. Except for snack, lunch, and PE, their children are being given a full day of instruction from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. with their teacher. Also, Orange Unified has already installed plastic dividers on students' desks. This was done so that children don't have to wear their masks all day. They're allowed to take off their masks when they sit down at their desks. So I'm one of the many parents who've had to make the difficult choice to bring our child home when COVID infection rates put our families' lives at risk. Because of the system we have here, moving online meant that our child was forced to switch teachers. And now that COVID infections are down and our vulnerable family members have been vaccinated, we're one of the many families who wanted our child to go back to in-person education, which of course means that we had to again switch teachers. Researchers are warning that next year COVID could mutate again and again, making current vaccinations obsolete. COVID infections will likely rise and fall. The governor might close schools. Parents could again choose in large numbers to keep their kids home. It's for this reason that I believe the current system at Capo dooms us to constantly playing musical teachers. A hybrid model is the only long-term sustainable model, true hybrid. The hybrid system is not without flaws. The teachers I spoke with in Orange Unified report that their largest struggle comes from having unsupervised online learners. And incidentally, this is actually the same complaint I heard from teachers here at Capo. These students are tremendous burdens on teachers. They're not bad kids. It's just all younger kids need to be supervised in online education. Unsupervised kids, they leave their microphones on, they ignore teacher instruction, they play Minecraft with the whole class listening, on and on. Therefore, would I suggest that there must be some system in place that would require parents to provide supervision for their children.
Thank you. I'm sorry, your 3 minutes is up.
Thank you very much.
And is Miguel Oporto there?
Yes, go ahead, Miguel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Miguel Oportot. That was my wife, Dr. Katie Mineta. I don't have a prepared statement. I just really wanted to log on and listen to the parents here today, but I will take a couple quick seconds just to echo my wife's sentiments and also the sentiments of all the parents who have spoken here today. Above all, I believe the most important thing would be to get kids back to school ASAP. I happen to be the director of the behavioral health program for Kaiser Permanente here in Orange County, and I am seeing firsthand the impact that distance learning, online learning is having on our kids and teens. Teen IOP programs are with long wait lists at Kaiser, at Hoag, at Mission, at St. Joe's. The impact is real, and I hope that our board here is very much considering the possibility of returning students to the school much sooner than the fall. In lieu of that, at the very least, I hope that what was mentioned earlier around a hybrid program be also considered a true hybrid program. That is not what is happening. There are not the safety glasses that are present at some of the other schools in other districts, present there in your conference room. Kids are not given the opportunity to unmask or to socialize with their peers. And at the very least, that I hope would be something that could be considered again, much sooner rather than later. I'm glad to hear that we're looking at the fall and reopening full time. But once again, put just too fine a point on it, and to echo all the sentiments that were already mentioned here today. Anything that can be done to bring our students back into a quote unquote normal, or as close to normal a routine sooner rather than later would be much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did we have any other speakers on the line that we missed? Okay, so that concludes oral comments from callers calling in and those that are here. Do trustees have any questions? We'll open it up for discussion.
I just wanted to clarify two things because we have 112 constituents on the line, which is always great, but I want to be able to clarify. In the state of California, the California Department of Public Health makes the rules. And as a school district, because we do have liability, we must follow those rules. Private schools have liability waivers, and so therefore they don't have the same rules to follow as public schools in the state of California. I do appreciate the appreciation, especially for our teachers and classified staff and administrators that really have pulled off a little miracle here, getting everything open to the extent that we are allowed. So again, the physical distancing, the masks. In Orange Unified, just like here in Capo, they must wear masks. These plastic devices, actually you can't put them around a desk and take your mask off. When you contact trace, actually nothing is even asked about a plastic. It is about how far you are away from that person and for how long. So I know this is a lot of information and it can be super confusing and frustrating for our constituents, but I just wanted to clarify that we follow the rules, and in following those rules, that has kept everyone safe, and we will continue to follow those rules. Having said that, CDPH in physical distancing has from 4 feet to 6 feet, so we are looking at that 4 feet. We're trying to understand that and the science behind that. A lot of the evidence and research actually takes all the mitigating factors together so that you're wearing a mask, you're washing your hands, and you are between 4 and 6 feet. And so we're trying to understand that. I just think that's really important. I know that the court case has come up a couple times. We are concerned that that court case may be stayed. So if it is, then it will still have to wait, but we will watch that very carefully in order to understand what happens. But I think the bottom line of what I wanted to say is a lot of this, we don't decide. We follow the rules to keep people safe, and then we do the best we can within those rules. And I appreciate, again, all the appreciation for our teachers, classified staff, and administrators for really pulling off a little miracle here in Capo. We have led the way, and it's pretty extraordinary. So thank you.
Thank you. Now, do we have any comments from trustees or questions?
I'll just do a positive comment. I checked in today with my RHD and ENF, and these are exceptional needs facility. These are our littlest ones with the biggest needs. And it was pretty amazing and profound what Principal Meisner was able to relay, how much work they've been able to get done with their students. She's got most of them wearing masks, which that we thought, oh no, that can never happen. And of course, she told me a million ed speak, all these different levels of things that were happening, and I can't really articulate it back, but just know that there were definitely bright spots. And again, huge commitment from staff. I got teary-eyed over that. And I think just on a side note, when we hear some students in such distress, and I can hear many of these parents are already getting their children help, that's code red, right? So make sure your school knows, identify them. You need to be on it, and we're a team. So we have a myriad of resources. Do not try to deal with it even yourself. And so we have layers of assistance there. So please reach out. We're here to help board members. If you're at a loss, just email us and we'll direct you to the right way. So my heart goes out to everyone that is really profoundly struggling. But please don't do whatever it takes. Contact your school, flag them, insist this is important. So that's just want to make those comments.
Thank you for sharing that, Trustee Hanachek. Very true. And yes, Trustee McNicholas?
I'd like to follow up on the superintendent's comments about what we are restricted by in the California Department of Public Health. But on the other hand, I do want people to know how hard the superintendent and the entire staff are working with and advocating for our students with the California Department of Public Health, the Orange County Healthcare Agency, Dr. Chow, Dr. Galley, Dr. Maharas. I mean, I know you talk to these people, I don't know the daily, but multiple times during the week. CUSD has been a leader. We will continue to be a leader, and we are pushing as hard as we can. And I've written letters. My word doesn't go farther than, I mean, the superintendent is really the leader on this, but I've written a few letters to legislators and anybody who'll listen to me. So it's not, we aren't saying, oh, we can't do this because the CDPH says we can't. I mean, that is the truth, but we are trying to push for anything, any more flexibility that we can get and still keep our students and our employees safe. Thank you.
Trustee Jones?
I almost never speak for the entire board. They don't let me do that. But I know what these people think. And I know that they all know that this virtual or hybrid year just stinks. It is not good educationally. It's not good emotionally. And that's not the fault of the teachers and the staff. It's just not a good deal. We all get it. We all get it. I know every single one of these board members gets it. I know, I don't know everybody who works here, but every staff member that I know gets it. I know, as Trustee McNicholas said, the staff pushes back against the state. They question the state. The trustees push back against the staff and question the staff. We don't like this. I personally hate it. I think it stinks. This is not how I want to be doing things. And if there was anything more that could be done, this district would be doing it. And I appreciate so much what your parents have to say. We're going to do anything we can do for the kids. We know this is not right.
I'm just going to add my comment that I've talked to more politicians than I'm ever used to. And okay, we're electeds, but I just put us in a different category. We're here about the kids. But I myself and Martha, I've had 2 conversations with Senator Pat Bates, being on Zoom calls, and as well as just yesterday with Lori Davies. We are trying with legislators and with the California School Board Association supporting us. We are trying to send the message. We are giving them specifics. We're giving them stories so that these legislators can go and talk to Governor Newsom and his people to tell the story in terms of what the needs are. And we've made some headway, but we're working it from every angle you can possibly imagine. And we just want you to know that. And our heart aches to hear the stories from you this evening. And so to Trustee Hanachek's comments, please make sure that you reach out and that we know at the school level. And if you don't get anywhere, let us know. This is an information item this evening, and there's no board action to be taken. Oh, and I'm sorry, but I almost missed Trustee Davis.
I also want to echo everyone's words, and I want families to know that CUSD is doing everything in their power to meet the needs of students, all students at every grade in every level. And I also have been sending more emails and letters to people that I would have never thought I ever would. And I've spoke to hundreds of families that have shared their thoughts and concerns and worries about their children. And my heart aches for every family during this time because it's not easy. There is nothing easy about this last year. And not one person, not one teacher, not one administrator, not one staff, not one trustee, no one thinks it's easy. And everyone is doing everything they can to get kids back in school. And please, please reach out to your site if your children are struggling. And if you're not getting where you need to, please reach out to us and we will help you. And please do not let your children suffer. And please make sure that you are aware of their needs. I also have a senior and we know we are living it.
Okay. We're going to now move to agenda item number 26. The first reading of Board Policy 1325, Advertising and Promotion. We'd like to recognize Clark Hampton, Deputy Superintendent, Business and Support Services, to present this item.
Thank you, President Bolekis. So this item, as mentioned in the item, it's the first reading of a revision of our advertising and promotion policy, and it brings it into alignment with the California School Boards Association policies, but it specifically adds a criteria for advertising on very limited exclusive spaces. So there has been we had some difficulties in the past when you have a place that's very limited, like a billboard or things such as that. So this puts in a competitive process to avoid any appearances of favoritism. And it's a very transparent process to maximize the revenue that the advertising can bring to the site, and create a process that makes it fair for everybody to be able to have an opportunity to advertise. So, and again, this is the first reading. Thank you.
Okay, we do not have anyone requesting to speak. Trustees, do you have questions at all?
No, I'd make a motion if we can pass it on the first reading. Or not.
You can't. So you just have to first make a motion to pass it on the first reading and vote on that. And then you can vote on the reading of the policy.
Do we have a second for passing?
Second.
Approving on the first reading. Okay, so it was moved by Trustee Hanachek, seconded by Trustee Bronstein. If you could please call a vote, call roll.
Trustee Hanachek.
Aye.
Trustee Davis.
Aye.
Trustee Bronstein.
Aye.
Trustee McNicholas.
Aye.
Trustee Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Castellanos.
Aye.
Trustee Bolekis.
Aye.
Motion carries to waive the second reading with a preferential vote of absent from the student advisor.
Do I have a motion to approve Board Policy 1325, Advertising and Promotion on its first reading?
So moved. Second.
Trustee Jones, did you have a comment, or you?
No,
were
I was
second?
making a motion, but someone else moved as well. Trustee Davis also, she can be first and I'll be second.
Okay, so it was moved by Trustee Davis and seconded by Trustee Jones.
Trustee Hanachek.
Aye.
Trustee Davis.
Aye.
Trustee Bronstein.
Aye.
Trustee McNicholas. Trustee Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Castellanos.
Aye.
And Student Advisor Boschka. Motion carries 7-0 to approve.
You didn't call on.
I'm
sorry, you
so
missed.
sorry. Trustee Bolekis.
Aye. Thank you.
Motion carries 7-0 to approve first reading of Board Policy 1325, Advertising and Promotion, with preferential vote of aye from Student Advisor Boschkar.
And then our final, well, no, we'll be going back, not final yet, sorry. Item number 27, revised selection of trustee participation on various committees. I am the one who has brought this forward. And just to give you a little background, I have to say that in December, when I became president and at the meeting that we then went through the list for board members to volunteer to participate on, I felt a little overwhelmed, and that possibly continuing on in my role with CSBA might be just too much. And I stayed on the IMRC committee, which is where Trustee Davis is a alternate. Thank you. And what I'm finding then as president is that I am still attending the CSBA, and I think they like to have a president with that title. They think it carries more clout or something. And so I went back to Trustee Davis to say, and she's been very involved with IMRC, and that is Instructional Material Review Committee, and to ask her if she would consider, if we brought it back to the board, I'd like to know if I could continue, it ends this month, if I could continue as the delegate on the CSBA with Trustee McNicholas. And that would have then Trustee Davis as the IMRC lead, and I would be the backup, the alternate. So this is coming before the board for a vote, but any questions, please ask, or I'll ask for a motion.
I will move approval of the switch in committee responsibilities from Trustee Bullicus to continue on CSBA, and Trustee Davis to take the role on the IMRC.
Okay, so we have a motion by Trustee McNicholas. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Jones. And if we could call roll.
Trustee Hanachek.
Aye.
Trustee Davis.
Aye.
Trustee Bronstein.
Aye.
Trustee McNicholas.
Aye.
Trustee Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Castellanos.
Aye.
Trustee Bullicus.
Aye.
And Student Advisor Boschkar.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0 to approve the new committee assignments for Trustees Bullicus and Trustees Davis with the preferential vote of aye from Student Advisor Boschkar.
Just one comment, Ms. Hayes, will you make sure we notify CSBA of the change in delegate?
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, board, for allowing me to make a mistake and to reconsider. And thank you, Trustee Davis, in your role. Okay, we are going back to consent number 17. Trustee Hanachek, do you want to share with us any questions or comments you had about consideration and approval for job descriptions?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I do. This is super important work. These are the leaders of the educational side of our school district. And it's a culmination, obviously, of the most recent reorganization. Superintendent Vital has reorganized frequently, but this one is really sending the school district in a different direction. So I wanted to bring it to the forefront. I have questions, and I think that the work is around efficiencies, and efficiencies are important. School board, this is what we consider, but we also have to represent our families, and they are always more interested in effectiveness. So I have some concern when I was reading the job description, because as board members, at least I know I am, I'm very invested in attracting, retaining, supporting, and setting up individuals for success. So some of these are very complex to me, or a little bit much. And I also I am echoing a little bit of course, our special ed community. I know this work started earlier, but with COVID now, it is a little destabilization on top of destabilization. So I think I'm probably a little late. I know these positions have already been flown. They're on EdJoin now. They'll probably close in about an hour. And I believe this is internal. This is internal work. So we have great people in CUSD. But again, this is a culmination of a lot of work, and this is super important. And I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say that this district has done this before, going way, way back. And I suppose any district faced with less than ideal finances looks to try to do this. And when we did it before, it just was too much onus on the school sites. We didn't have MTSS though. And I listened to Dr. Merwin today in the CAC. He expressed their theory around this. He explained what one system of support for all students is. Trustee Bronstein and I were there together. But this is important. It looks like we have one position that is reassigned, and then everybody else is going to be reapplying. So I guess I'm just disappointed that we didn't have more work around this and more open conversation. This affects our community. This is the work of the board. And we want it to be successful. I, as a board member, want to stand behind it too. So the challenge is I could go through these positions, which I already had. And I think at the end of the day, I'm looking at several of these that would be very hard to really, there's so much in the position. It'd be hard to identify if the individual is successful. And we do have to have we have to have benchmarks. We have to have, be able to come back to our community and say, this is working in this direction. And I'm sure you will work those out. So again, I would be remiss if I didn't at least say that this is challenging. This is going to be challenging for a lot of folks, especially at this time. I do understand the budgetary constraints, but I am concerned that some of these positions and the way they are written, the individual may not be set up for success. And that is important to me. I want everybody in CUSD to be part of the family and be successful. So I guess I will ask a couple questions around the job description, since they will be going forward and we will have to understand what the purview of these individuals are. So something that has jumped out at me on both the assistant superintendent and I appreciate a little bit of copy paste on the jobs. So both this individual says elementary instruction, associate superintendent mentions, ability to elementary instruction. We don't get to secondary until those directors positions. So I think looking at, really the train's really going. And I'm a little disappointed. I feel like I haven't been able to do my job to understand, fully understand once this went from theoretical to action. And hearing today trepidation from our special ed community, which we do know that if things are not successful, they may be the first group to feel it, won't be in gen ed. So there's a lot of things. And again, we have tried this before. So I guess I don't really have any questions because I don't even know really what to ask. Like I said, the folks probably have already applied. They have to do it by 11:59 this evening. I suppose if we don't have any internal candidates, Tim, do you fly it outside or do you just keep going inside?
No, we would look at that. If we don't have internal, we would consider an external recruitment.
Okay. And again, I can imagine many individuals in our organization that would be Herculean or Hercules to take these on. All right, well, I think I'm just going to let it go. I had gotten myself so worked up over this, to be honest with you. I had so many notes. And at 10 of 10, I'm going to let things go where they may fall. I think we will have challenges. Some of them you probably already are aware of, others that we haven't heard from yet. I just kind of worry on the lift of this whole thing. Everything from the charters to the athletics to a myriad of things. So I think I'm just going to call it for tonight.
Okay, any other comments? Trustee McNicholas.
I was challenged last time when we talked about the cuts because without an organization chart in front of you, it's hard to know which blocks are maybe going away and replaced by others. So at this point, I know we're just approving the positions. And that's like, analogy was explained to me, it's like approving novels that we can use. It doesn't mean we bought the novels. It doesn't mean the teachers are using the novels. We're just approving a novel. So here we're approving the positions. So the financial thing won't happen until we actually hire somebody in that position. And I believe, and maybe Superintendent, you can explain that, because that was one of my questions, is why there's no fiscal impact. But when we talked about the cuts in positions last month, knowing that the restructuring was going to bring different positions back, was that the savings a net savings? Or is the savings we thought we were going to, or is this not a discussion we can have even when we're talking about the positions?
So at the end of the day, it's really about approving job descriptions. It's why it's a business item that's on consent, and restructuring, layoffs is a conversation for closed session that we did have in closed session, and then reported out of closed session a layoff. And so unfortunately, restructuring is just not, these are real humans and with names, and that's not a public conversation.
Okay, I was just trying to, in my mind, go through the fiscal impact. And I understand this is just.
Well, and there is a net savings to the restructuring.
Right.
At the end of the day, there will be fewer administrators. And I too would agree. I want everyone in this organization set up for success. I think what is tragic about our budget and the ongoing structural deficit is that we've had to reorganize and continue to make reductions. And we have tried really hard to make those reductions here to support our schools and continue to build capacity at schools. And if we had high LCFF, we probably could have more administrators and more support. So we are going to do the best we can with some of the greatest people I've ever worked with, and really get clear about our theory of action and talk about what we deal with, what we can and can't do. It's the reality of being in a district with very little general funds. It's just our reality.
I will move approval of item 17.
Okay, I have a comment I'd like to make. I understand the restructuring, and I just want to say I've been on the board for about 3.5 years now and have seen the dramatic improvement in special ed. And under the leadership of Dr. Merwin, the changes that have had to be made and the, I'm forgetting the acronym, the TMSS.
MTSS.
MTSS, I had it reversed. So when I understand making these changes, I think that there's a lot of educated thought that have gone into how to align this. When I've heard about how the realignment is that we don't have all these different people, you know, focused on a student, but that we've got one main person looking for the whole student. A lot of these things made good sense to me. And to keep in mind that this phasing, this restructure, this is not phase number one. We have already been restructuring in the last, I know the last year, I don't know exactly in terms of the months to be able to say. But so we do have budgeting, but it's to maximize efficiencies. And we've got some fabulous staff. When I read these job descriptions, I had people come into mind that I thought, well, I hope they apply. I hope they apply. So I have the confidence that this was a very well thought out, very well much needed, but I have the confidence that this is the right thing for the long haul. So we had a motion to move item number 17 by Trustee McNicholas. And do we have a second? Second. Seconded by Trustee Bronstein. And for the last vote of the night, Mrs. Hayes.
Second to the last vote, we'll start with Student Advisor Boschkar. Aye. Trustee Hanachek.
Nay.
Trustee Davis.
Aye.
Trustee Bronstein.
Aye.
Trustee McNicholas.
Aye.
Trustee Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Castellanos.
Aye.
Trustee Bullicus.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1 with a preferential vote of aye from Student Advisor Bethkar.
Please tell me what did I miss? What did we vote on?
Move to adjourn.
So we need a move to
Oh, okay. There's an important one. So sorry.
the leprechauns are out.
Move to adjourn.
Aye.
Trustee McNicholas with the second of Trustee Jones.
Aye.
Aye.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The time is now 9:57. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Good night and happy St. Patrick's Day.